There's something we rarely admit aloud. A quiet suspicion that behind the noise of our lives, the traffic, the screens, the rituals, the striving, there's a great silence, a space beneath all things. We give that silence different names. Some call it emptiness. Others call it nihilism. Some whisper it as nothingness. But are they the same? What do we mean when we say something feels empty? When we fear that nothing matters? When we sense nothingness itself? In this video, we're going to explore these ideas not just philosophically, but personally. Because these aren't just concepts. They're experiences. And if you've ever sat awake at 3 a.m. staring at your ceiling, wondering why any of this exists, you've already begun this journey. Let's walk it together. In the West, when we say something is empty, we usually mean it's missing something. A glass that needs filling. A heart that longs for love. A life that has lost its spark. But in the East, especially in Buddhist thought, emptiness is something very different. In Sanskrit, the word is Śūnyatā, and doesn't mean a hollow void. It means lack of inherent, independent existence. That sounds abstract, but think of it like this. A tree is not just a tree. It is the sun, the soil, the rain, the seed, the time. Take those away, and the tree vanishes. The tree is empty of independent selfhood, and so are you. Your name, your thoughts, your identity, they arise from conditions. Culture, genes, language, memory, experience. You are not a solid thing. You are a process, constantly becoming. This insight leads not to despair, but to liberation. Because if the self is empty, then the pain it clings to is also transient. The ego that demands control can be softened. Suffering becomes lighter. The Zen master writes, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." Emptiness is spacious. It makes room for peace, for clarity, for compassion. But for those raised in a world of fixed beliefs, fixed goals, fixed identities, emptiness can feel like a collapse. And that collapse is where nihilism begins. Nihilism begins when the stories we believed stop working, when the gods fall silent, when tradition feels fake, when we stare at the world and whisper, "None of this matters." Friedrich Nietzsche knew this well. When he declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He was grieving, because without the scaffolding of belief, the church, morality, destiny, modern man stood adrift. Nihilism is the belief that life has no inherent meaning, no purpose, no objective value. But it's more than a belief, it's a mood, a fog that descends. And it takes many forms. The teenager who shrugs and says, "Who cares?" The philosopher who dismantles every truth until nothing remains. The worker who moves through their days in quiet disillusionment. But Nietzsche didn't stop at despair. He saw nihilism as a doorway, a painful, necessary fire. We must, he said, become creators of value. We must live as if we ourselves are the artists of meaning. He envisioned the Übermensch, the overman, who says yes to life despite its lack of guarantees, who dances on the edge of the abyss and laughs. Nihilism, then, is not the end. It is a test. Do you collapse into meaninglessness? Or do you begin to build? Now we come to the strangest of the three, nothingness. Not emptiness, which reveals interconnection. Not nihilism, which mourns the loss of meaning, but a raw confrontation with non-being itself. For Heidegger, nothingness was not just absence. It was the condition for being. He said, "The nothing itself annihilates." That sounds cryptic, but here's the idea. We only understand being, existence, because we also sense non-being. When you look at your life and realize it could not have been, that it could end at any moment, that is the pulse of nothingness. In those moments, a kind of clarity appears. The trivial falls away. You become aware of the raw fact of being alive. Jean-Paul Sartre took this further. In Being and Nothingness, he describes human consciousness as a nothingness that haunts being. We're not fixed things. We are lack. We imagine futures. We negate the present. We say, "I am not what I want to be." This tension, this gap, is our freedom. And it's terrifying. To realize that no one else will define you, that you must choose, and that every choice excludes all others. This is the burden of nothingness, but it is also the gift, because in that silence is the space to become. Emptiness, nihilism, nothingness. 3 words, 3 moods, 3 mirrors. Emptiness tells us that nothing stands alone, and that in understanding interdependence, we find peace. Nihilism tells us that no meaning is guaranteed, and that in facing this, we can become creators of value. Nothingness tells us that even being rests on silence, and that in that silence, we encounter freedom. They're not just ideas. They are invitations to let go of what no longer serves, to walk into the darkness and come out singing, to realize that the void is not the enemy, it is the canvas. And maybe, just maybe, this is where philosophy lives. Not in answers, but in the willingness to look into the abyss and stay a while. This has been Phi. If this reflection stirred something in you, like, share, subscribe. Not because the void needs it, but because we do.